So you've seen a thing that I thought I was going to see.
It's because you thought you were going to see a movie.
I thought I was, yeah. That was the plan.
But if you went to see what you thought you were going to see that you thought was a movie, you wouldn't be seeing a movie.
Well, that's not entirely true, right? I mean, I would go to a theater, and I would pay the ridiculous fee, and I would maybe buy some overpriced concessions, and then I would sit in a theater room with stadium seating and look at a giant screen with images and sound. That's very similar to a movie.
It's similar, but so you'll be in the theater. You'll have your snacks and your ticket, and you'll be surrounded by a couple dozen other people, maybe.
Sure.
The difference is that you won't be watching a movie, because a movie is what Alien Covenant is not.
Uh-huh.
It's straight up not a movie. Or just, they got us good. I've been had.
What do you mean they got us good?
It's like, hey, let's tell everyone it's going to be a movie. And then when they go see it, it'll be so funny because it won't be a movie, and it'll have Ridley Scott's name on it.
But why? How is it not a movie?
You know the Spice World effect, right?
No.
Of course not, because I just invented the term. But it is an actual thing that you might remember from our group of friends, where
I remember that you were a big fan of Spice World.
No, what I had said at the time was that Spice World is the first movie I ever saw where I did not, at any point during the movie, care about what was going to happen next.
Uh-huh.
There's something about Alien Covenant that takes that a step further. That convinces me, as I'm sitting there watching this movie, that it is not actually a movie. That wasn't the intended purpose for whatever I was seeing. So, I don't know where to begin, so maybe I can get a bit of the comedy out of the way before I scoop my brain out with a spoon. I seriously, I came home after seeing this movie, ran a washcloth under hot water, and placed it on my forehead and just lay there for 20 minutes trying not to think.
The movie in quotes, the movie caused you physical problems.
Yes.
All right.
Now that said, I feel it's important to point out that it's not as bad as The Keep. Which, it's not...
Nothing is.
Nothing is, yeah.
We know that.
But, it's like the things that happen in movies that... Like, you know how you can see someone's death coming?
Sure. Sometimes.
It wasn't even one of those things where it's like, oh, this person is going off alone, they might bite it. And you're like, a lot of times you can say, okay, yeah, this is one of the people that's definitely going to die.
Yeah.
It was different for this movie. For this movie, it was more like, hey, Bill, can you watch the grill for a minute? Make sure the burgers don't burn, because I'm just going to go over here by myself, like seriously, just by myself, and die for no reason at all whatsoever. So if you could just watch that while I do that.
Oh, and I won't need my burger.
Yeah, well, they don't say that part, because then then they would be doing something for a purpose, which nobody was doing for any purpose in this. Do you remember the first Alien movie where it was like this hardcore ragtag misfit group that, everyone was pretty tough and, ready to take on some of these challenges, and it seemed for the most part like they actually knew what they were doing, like there was a doctor and there's an android, and, these people are trained to use certain equipment.
Sure.
I don't know what they were looking for when they put this crew together, the crew of the Covenant.
Uh-huh.
But I'm pretty sure that the CEO sponsoring...
The ship is actually called the Covenant?
Yeah, the ship is called the Covenant.
Not the Dawn of Justice.
Not the Dawn... No. Or the Dawn Treader. Neither of those.
Okay.
But the CEO that sponsors the voyage of the Covenant was probably shown the list of crew members... And then he threw up his hands and said, sure, whatever. And he walked away, resigned, and was never heard from again. these people were utterly useless. Like I put together a list of skills that you have to to the crew, the requirements for the crew on the Covenant.
Like a list of necessary skills to run the ship.
Well, a list of the qualities that they look for in people that they want to put on this crew.
Right.
So, the ability to use hooks.
Like fishing hooks?
Yes, like just things that hook onto other things. That might be. Well, it's not the first one. Actually, they're not in any specific order. But the first and most important thing that you have to have if you want to be part of this this high class crew is a spouse. It's just straight up. You can't do it without one.
Also on the ship?
Yes, they got to be there. So everybody pair off. Military firearms training. Now,
that sounds useful.
It could be useful. I don't understand why everyone had it when it was supposed to be a colonization program.
Well,
deep space, find a planet, and
a lot of those projects start out as kind of like military, or they use ex-military people.
That may be, but I mean, like why is a doctor carrying around a 75-pound assault weapon? You mean
you don't?
Well, not when anyone's looking.
That's what concealment means.
It's my backpack, sir. What about that? Oh, that's my dog.
That's an ammo belt. Why does it go into the backpack? Wouldn't you like to know?
Hint, you wouldn't.
You don't want to know.
So going on, another one of the very important space-based skills you'd want to have as part of the crew of the Covenant.
Extravehicular activity.
Carpentry, actually. Carpentry is next on the list.
On a spaceship.
Yes.
Are they growing trees on the spaceship?
If they were, they didn't. I'm assuming that they were because it was a colonization spaceship. I'm assuming they were growing something, but that has nothing to do with this requirement. Do they have a forest
on the ship?
No, they don't. They have no forest.
Are they transporting lumber?
They actually are.
Oh, okay. Well, I can see that then.
but it's a skill. And we have to assume, based on the dialogue that happens in the movie, that multiple people have this carpentry skill. So,
are you sure it's carpentry and not just simple woodworking?
No, it's carpentry.
Okay, just checking. Proceed.
Yes, complete indifference to the discovery of life.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, like, let's say, hypothetically speaking,
life?
Hypothetically speaking, spoilers, everyone, but hypothetically speaking, you pick up a signal from a distant planet, and while investigating the signal, you realize that it's from a human being in a sector of the universe that they're not supposed to even be in. And it's coming from a habitable planet, which is what you were looking for in the first place. And
like a human being, or like a
human being,
alien?
A human being singing a John Denver song.
What?
Don't ask. Just
I feel compelled to.
There's a guy on the ship named Tennessee. Don't ask again.
I mean, no. No. There was.
That's not the fault of the people who made the movie. Other than someone thought that someone would seriously name their child Tennessee.
Well, no, but wasn't the captain of the first ship in the first movie named Dallas?
Yes, but Tennessee and Dallas are two completely different things. One of them is Tennessee. The other is Dallas. I mean, at least be named after a TV show, for crying out loud.
Like Dynasty.
Yes. So, moving on. Or we can't move on yet. We didn't. We interrupted the explanation about 6 times here. Yes, you have to be completely indifferent to discovering that this signal is coming from an unknown planet that's habitable. Then you have to go to the planet
and apparently inhabited.
Inhabited, yes.
Yes.
Then you have to go to the planet.
What do you mean by indifferent? Like, how indifferent?
I'm getting there.
Are you?
Play ball. Play ball.
Do I care?
I don't know. I didn't.
If I don't, does that mean I can get on the ship?
According to the rules thus far, yes.
Excellent.
But I can't... See, you're a physicist, though. You've got actual training in something.
Sort of.
So you get to a planet. The only thing that really shocks you is that they have wheat just like they have on Earth, but this raises no other alarm bells other than like, oh, well, that's strange, whatever. Then you actually find a spaceship that doesn't look like a human spaceship. You go inside and you find spacesuits for gigantic beings, and it's just like, oh, they must have been pretty big. Well, let's continue on our little exploration here through the jungles of space.
I'm going to stop you right there and say that's not indifference to the finding of life. That's the indifference to the finding of evidence of something crazy happening. Am I wrong?
No, you're wrong. You are wrong, because right after they find these spacesuits, they find the dog tags of the woman from Prometheus.
Okay.
Probably shouldn't have spoiled that one that early, but it doesn't matter. And this is just like, oh, this is that doctor. Oh, well. I mean, it was seriously like Lost Skeleton of Cadavra indifference to everything they were seeing. It's like, hey, you remember that spaceship that disappeared 10 years ago? She was on that. And they don't even take the dog tags with her. They with them. They don't even take. There's a picture of her and her. There's like a framed photo that apparently this woman was carrying all throughout Prometheus that we never saw, and it was just sitting on the ground next to her dog tags. And they picked it up and looked at it, and then they set it back down and walked away from it. I mean, total
Were they
indifference.
under duress? Was it one of those things where it was like we don't have the capacity to worry about this right now?
No. They were looking around like, we could set up camp here.
Oh. So they weren't, like, being chased by something that would cause them to leave these things behind.
No, this is all pre-chase.
Okay.
It was absurd. So anyway, moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
Diligence in the face of sitting.
What kind of diligence and what kind of sitting?
I mean, the only time that they seemed committed to anything was when they weren't actually doing anything and were just lazing about. The entire crew.
I see.
It's like nobody had any commitment to anything.
Well, they have spouses.
Yeah, we'll get back to that too.
Okay.
The long and short of that is that the only reason that you know that they all have spouses is because almost every single person at some point says something like, "Can I speak to my wife?" only to find out that they're dead.
Awesome.
It actually was. It was probably the most satisfying thing about this non-movie. So, very poor military firearms training.
Now, is this in addition to or separate from the previous requirement?
It's in addition to.
Is this like something that, like, 6 of the crew had good skills and 1 had bad skills, or
no? It was something more like you watch them all march out and get handed weapons before they start strolling on the planet, and then about 20 minutes later you realize, oh, they don't know how to use this stuff.
But I thought you said they had training.
Very poor military firearms training.
The question I'm asking you is, why are these 2 separate items?
Because of the shock factor of finding out that they're ready for... They are the most prepared they could possibly be without being ready for anything.
I see. Okay.
No communication skills.
What?
No communication skills.
What?
No communication skills.
Still not getting it.
I mean, they bottom out at the point at which it's like, did you find her? Yeah, I found her. And then, but he doesn't even mention that.
Is she alive?
No, it's
something like that.
It's like maybe pardon the pun, but maybe a heads up on the severed head. Really, Gary?
Yeah, right. Jean-Jacques Gibson style.
And while you're at it, why don't you just continue exploring, only to find that some guy has his chest ripped out, and not even say anything over the radio about it. That was really helpful.
Hey, I found John. What?
So we're all together again.
Okay?
Everything's cool. Yeah, it's all good. We're
10-4. I'm just going to interject this because I haven't seen the movie, and this is maybe somewhat humorous on the side. But I used to ride the bus to and from school, university when I was in grad school, and sometimes you listen to the bus drivers on the radio and you discover that they don't actually know what 10-4 means. It's like, yeah, it means I acknowledge and understand, and they were using it like a comma.
What?
I mean that their conversations would be punctuated over and over with them saying 10-4 for no really compelling reason.
I think I need to update this list.
Yeah.
So let's see, what else do you need to be capable of to work on the Covenant? You have to have the ability to put into place 0 security protocols.
But
not a single one whatsoever.
What do you... I like
the grand plan for anything going wrong is hope that someone is standing by a door that they can close.
But like, aren't they on a spaceship?
Yes, they're on a spaceship.
Surrounded by vacuum?
Surrounded by vacuum, yes.
And high radiation?
Very high radiation. Now, it's so funny
that
you
have any protocols to deal with.
It's so funny that you haven't seen this.
Is it?
So, the beginning of the movie, they open some solar sails on the ship.
Yep.
And the first thing that happens is a solar storm rips some of the shields apart.
Okay.
And all of the crew is asleep and cryogenically frozen, and one android is on the ship.
Yeah.
So he hauls tail to the bridge, tells the computer to wake up the crew for quote-unquote emergency protocols, which I think means everyone run around screaming, find the equipment that'll rip open any pods that don't open on their own, watch some guy burst into flames, and then cry. After everything has calmed down, and nobody does a single thing to... The android is the only person who picks up a fire extinguisher and puts out a fire on the bridge.
On the dude?
Far removed from everyone else.
Does he put out the dude that's on fire?
No, that guy's dead.
Oh, okay. Does he have a spouse?
Yes, that's the first spouse.
Does she know he's dead yet?
She watched him die. It was kind of satisfying, actually.
So we didn't need communication skills for that.
No. Well, they tried to. They were She was screaming at him through glass while he was asleep.
Oh, that's always nice.
Yeah, they had a jaws of life that apparently none of them knew how to work. It's like they clearly had plenty of time to cut this thing open, and there were like 2 guys working this thing, and then you're just like, is he going to suffocate in there? And then you start to see fire, and you're like, oh, he's going to burn to death.
Awesome.
It's like, you had 3 minutes here, guys. I don't know what's going on. I mean, it took it took his wife 2 minutes to get up out of her pod because she was like in a daze, even though everyone else was, on their game like this one time in the movie.
Yeah.
But they didn't actually do anything. That, like, I don't understand what part of the emergency required them to be woken up, because they didn't do anything to solve any problems once they woke up, other than to watch one guy burn.
Well, was the fire going to engulf their pods?
I guess that was the only... We have to infer that, I guess. So after...
So here's a question for you. Everyone on the ship is in cold sleep, right?
Yes.
In hermetically sealed pods, right?
Yes.
Why is there oxygen outside the pods?
In case they have to be woken up in an emergency.
That's what a pump is for.
That may be.
I mean, if the emergency that's going to wake them up is a fire, we can cut that. We can nip that in the bud.
So back to 0 security protocols.
I mean, no, hold on. It's a spaceship. It has to have ventilation anyway.
Actually, I don't know if that falls under 0 security protocols or no communication skills, but I'm pretty sure it's.
Oh God!
I haven't even got to the medical part yet. Okay. Point being, this panic scenario ensues, and only when they all calm down and debate whether they should give the dead guy a proper funeral before trying to fix anything, and then the captain saying, "No, that's stupid," and everyone getting angry at him, and for some reason the movie trying to make you feel like he's the bad guy. Only then do they go and fix the problem with hooks.
with hooks. Awesome.
So, I don't know how signal hailing works in the crazy universe of aliens, but the only reason they were able to pick up the alien signal, or the human signal from the alien planet, was because the guy in his spacesuit with the hooks fixing the thing was far enough away from the ship that the ship's electromagnetics weren't interfering with signals. So I guess my question...
That's not how that's supposed to work.
Yeah, I guess my question is, how does someone hail their ship if signals don't get through?
Well, a hail is just a signal on a well-known channel, isn't it?
Well, how are they supposed to get like an emergency signal if they're blocking emergency signals?
Well, why are they... The purpose of an emergency signal, radio band, is that you don't block it.
But they were blocking it.
Why were they blocking the emergency signal band?
If I'm recalling correctly, I think they explained it as like some kind of radiation protection for the ship. But that begs the question: why did they send the guy out in the suit?
Well,
and I know I'm using begging the question wrong, but my brain hurts.
That's all right. But like, why would his suit have a wideband communicator on it? That doesn't make any sense. And then do they know what an antenna is?
Because the ship had to communicate with him, and they don't know what a walkie-talkie is.
I see.
I mean, I'm not surprised. The first thing they showed in after they got through their little non-crisis scenario was someone using I'm pretty sure it was like a Samsung tablet.
What? For what? Science?
Yeah, because this movie takes place earlier than the first Alien movie, so naturally they would have televisions and tablets that look more sophisticated than the ones that they had in that movie.
Yes.
Naturally.
Well, that's a common thing.
I'm not feeling very forgiving.
That's all right. You don't have to feel forgiving. It's just one of those details that... I mean, it's like... The ships in the more recent Star Wars movies sure look more advanced than the ones in the first one.
I didn't say they couldn't do it. I just said I wasn't going to be forgiving.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's continue the list, though. Coming to the end here.
Sure.
So,
all right.
Anyone who's medically trained needs to show a total restraint of skills.
What do you mean by a restraint of skills? You mean they deliberately don't medicine people?
What I mean is, in the event of adversity, the ideal solution is to do nothing which would place you in a good situation during the adversity. Like,
not usually.
I guess I should finish the list first, because the last item is crying. Now, you're probably asking, why am I going to explain the medical part after finishing the list with its last item? What does crying have to...
Does the restraint of medical skills cause crying?
It doesn't cause it. See, basically the last three are linked. 0 security protocols, if medically trained, total restraint of skills, and crying. These are all very important because it's like the worst scene that this non-movie... Someone should be punished for coming up with this. Someone gets sick while they're on the alien world.
Like, cough sick, or like...
Like, very, very violently ill.
Okay.
Like coughing up blood ill. Black blood.
Oh, yeah.
So, the medical officer that's still on the ship... I'm assuming it's a medical officer, because she's the only one that anyone's calling doctor or claiming has any medical knowledge.
Okay.
She sees this person being dragged back to the ship after having a violent attack. Then this person vomits blood on the person carrying him.
Yeah.
And she's like, quick, come inside, and don't touch anything on your way to the medical bay.
What?
That's step 1.
Uh-huh. One of many.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
So they drag this guy to the medical bay. He's spasming violently, but they still try to get his clothes off for some reason. I guess that's what you do. You don't administer any kind of sedative or anything.
No, the sedative comes after the seizures have ended.
rip the poor guy's shirt off. There's these spots of blood on his back that explode into the medical officer's face. And her first reaction is to run screaming out of the medical bay and lock the other two people in there. But that isn't even where it gets good. She stumbles down the hallway crying, banging into every single thing that's jutting out from the walls. Medical kits, fire extinguishers.
It's kind of like that scene in Airplane where he's like chasing after her and bumping into like things on in his path.
Yes, only they're not even on something that's in the sky and mobile.
Right.
So she does this so that she can run to the front of the little pod thing that took him to the planet. Mm-hmm. And call back to the ship, which inexplicably, after all of these events, is no longer able to contact anyone because of the storm that had been going on the whole time, yet they were still able to talk to them. But whatever.
Well, it got really bad there for a minute for some reason. Just coincidentally. I'm gonna ask you a question, because I've seen Prometheus. This violent illness that the guy has, is it contagious?
It's really weird because I don't know if we know.
What?
Well, you see, this movie wasn't really getting by on its coherent plot, so they needed a few explosions.
Oh, that's great.
Long and short of it, those 3 people are dead.
Well, that's just wonderful.
But there was another guy, and they had to pin him down as an alien exploded from him. And they didn't really show anyone else getting sick. So I'm assuming.
Well, I'm just thinking about the woman like bumping everything and having blood sprayed at her and like being in this enclosed space and like wiping blood all over everything.
Zero security protocols, total restraint of skills. That was exactly what she was doing. She was the medical officer, covered in blood, touching everything she could possibly touch outside of the medical bay.
Oh boy, this seems porous. I bet I can. We just rub up against this for a while. We'll never get that clean again. All the Lysol in the world won't do it.
So before the 3 of them all bite it. Alien bursts out of this. Okay. So she goes and she hails the ship and sends a garbled signal that they don't really understand, where she's like, "Oh my God, this guy's really sick." Yada yada. Apparently, she doesn't know any medical jargon. She grabs a gun.
Well, maybe she's just worried that other people on the ship do not.
No.
Okay. Well, I guess zero communication skills, right?
Yes. See how it all links together?
Oh yeah, it's a fucking rich tapestry.
It was rich, all right. So she grabs a gun, giant gun, huge gun, runs back to the medical bay that she'd locked the other woman in.
Yeah.
And this woman is pounding on the glass, yelling at her to let her out, and she's just standing there with a gun. And she waits, and they both watch as an alien bursts from this guy's back, which I guess is like the preamble to bursting from the chest. It's like they had to build to it or something.
Yeah, they're trying something new.
Yeah, and only then, only after this thing starts attacking this woman, does she burst into the room with a gun, try to shoot, but slip on a pool of blood, merely signaling to the alien that there was another person in the room. The alien immediately turns to attack her. She scrambles to get out of the room, smashes her leg in the door as she tries to close it, and then locks the other woman in again. And then stands up, and in what I swear could have been the exact same footage, runs down the hallway again, crying and bumping into everything.
That was in the preview trailer, wasn't it?
Maybe.
I think I know the scene you're talking about.
If I remember the trailer correctly, they just strung a bunch of action scenes together.
Well, there was that scene with the black girl inside the room saying, "No, open the door," and then the girl runs off. And like the alien's going after the black girl who's stuck in the room. Am I hitting it right?
Yes.
Okay, that was in one of the trailers.
And then the ship explodes.
What? Why?
Oh, because the alien gets out, and it just smashes its way through the glass and gets out and starts chasing her. And because of her firearms training, because of her military firearms training, she just shoots wildly around the ship until she hits something that explodes.
Oh, that sounds great.
So the rest of the crew that's out exploring comes back just in time to see the ship exploding.
Okay.
Like in one of those perverse moments of just pure comedy gold.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, guys, let's get back to the ship. And it's like you walk around the corner and it's on fire. And you're just like, we were gone 2 hours.
You guys had one job.
It wasn't even a job. It's just it's like the most simple instruction you could possibly have.
Don't make ship blow up. We'll be back in 2 hours. Don't make ship blow up.
We are a space crew.
Yes.
like you think that'd be in Space Travel 101. How not to have your ship explode. Rule number
Maybe.
1. In a ship full of things that might explode, don't fire a giant assault weapon willy-nilly.
At least don't do so haphazardly. Basically check your fire.
I mean, the pod door for the ship was wide open. She could have run outside with the gun. She would have had a clear shot of it coming out then.
Uh-huh.
No. It's like, oh, something screamed over here. I'll shoot over here. And then I'll just shoot everywhere after that.
Well, she was probably deaf at that point. Those things are loud.
Yeah, that might have been one of the most botched scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Fortunately, this wasn't a movie, so I guess they don't have to worry about that.
I suppose.
And I don't want to keep harping on it, but Ridley Scott put his name to this.
Well, he must have... Maybe he's senile.
Is there like another Ridley Scott that I don't know about that like hangs outside of... He's like hanging out outside
like
of...
Like it's just some random guy named Ridley Scott?
Picking,
yeah, there could be.
Picking
there could
trash
be
from the mental hospital's garbage.
Yeah.
This looks like a syringe. I'll try eating this. Well, time to go make a non-movie. I need another washcloth. Another 20-minute
not
minute.
like, but like not as like executive producer, like as director, right?
I think so. I think he directed this one.
So that means that at least theoretically he was on the scene when these scenes were shot.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he directed it. I just know that his name was in the credits in a prominent view space. Maybe he was just maybe he bankrolled it, but even so, he like if I bankrolled it and someone showed it to me before they released it, I'd be like, okay, but take my name off of the credits.
My name is now John Stanley. John Stanley is the executive producer of this movie.
No, not John Stanley. Stephen King. No, Steven Spielberg.
Steven Spielberg King?
Stephen King Spielberg.
DeVoe?
Yes.
Yes. Well, it sounds like quite an experience. I think I might actually have to go see it.
Well, that's the first maybe 15, 20 minutes of the movie.
What? No. What?
I think that's about 20 minutes in, maybe a little bit longer.
I'm sorry, you're 20 minutes in and they blew up the ship, stranding the people on the planet with goodness knows who?
It's okay, they left Tennessee on the colonization ship.
Oh, yeah, that's... Is he singing?
He is not singing, but we know he can sing because he knows the words to John Denver's Country Roads.
Everyone does, doesn't it? Don't they?
Everyone named Tennessee does.
I guess that's true. That's definitely true.
That's safe money right there.
Hey, John Denver's named after a place too.
Yes, Denver, Colorado. And Denver the Last Dinosaur.
That's not a place though. It's a state of mind.
It is a state of mind. Oh, my day just got better. Thank you. Yeah, I never thought of the implications of the words "he's our friend" and a whole lot more. But I think I get it now.
It's deep. So you're saying that these complaints that you've had aren't your complaints with the whole... How long is this movie?
I don't know, because this movie is more surreal than Denver the Last Dinosaur.
No, but you just said that 20 minutes in they've blown up the ship.
I mean more surreal than when they start time traveling in his eggshell.
What?
It's not a movie. None of what they're doing.
No, but assuming it's a 90-minute movie to 2 hours, what happens in the last hour and 40 minutes?
Lots of standing around until someone wanders off and dies, and then the action starts to pick up when they meet the android from the first movie, and he's apparently doing bioengineering experiments, and now he has a whole ship full of people that he can do them on. But they're not really like they show a shot of his room and show all the drawings that he's done and all the samples that he's collected, and in that single shot, in like the space of 4 seconds, you're like, oh, I know what he's been doing here. But then they pussyfoot around it, like everyone's walking around looking at this stuff, and it's just like, okay, so all right, maybe talk about it, or fill in some of the holes, and it's like, I already you told me what happened. You spoiled it, basically. It was an in-movie spoiler for everything that was going to play out from that point on. And then they're like, okay, now we'll slowly explain things that you already know.
Great.
Like, oh, he escaped with the one chick in the first movie, and while he was on that ship, he killed her and developed the alien embryos, and came to this planet and killed off the Prometheans, or whatever they were called. And at that point, it's like anyone that talks to this guy should know that that's what he did. And a half hour after that information is relevant, the android that he spoke to, that you're like, oh, he probably told him that he did that and probably gave him a reason, sits down with him and says, you didn't come here. He says, you didn't accidentally release the virus, did you? It happened you did it on purpose. It's like, wait, I thought that you established that. Like that was the assumption that he had...
The assumption was that this information had gotten out a long time ago.
yeah, when he comes back around to saying it, it's just like, oh my god, there's no coherent progression of events in this movie.
It's like the one android asks the other android that question, and the android says like, what virus? But like in the back part of the shot, you can see someone like spewing black things with their hands on their head and like kind of like gallivanting around.
No, it's even worse than that.
What? How can it be worse than that? I just came up with the worst possible thing I could think of.
The two androids are standing outside where there's all these blackened corpses of the Prometheans, and they're talking to each other, and in the middle of them talking, it cuts to a flashback without telling you right away that it's a flashback. It's just like, okay, they shifted back in time here, and I only...
Oh, that's the best kind of flashback.
Because the way they do it, it's like, why is there a spaceship here now? And you're like, oh, I see, it's a flashback, and they just weren't going to tell me that.
Yeah.
So they actually show him dropping the virus on the Prometheans.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to them talking, and you're like, oh, okay, so he shared this secret, and he didn't really give a reason, so maybe the other android should be like, dude. But I don't know, maybe they're chums, and he's just not going to say anything. I don't know. There's no indication of what transpired in that conversation. We just know we have a flashback that told us the absolute truth in no uncertain details.
Right.
And then a half hour later they come back and say, hey, that wasn't an accident, was it? I don't know how they thought foreshadowing worked. Like maybe someone had edited the film together wrong or some... I mean, I could see that, honestly. But it just... There was no... From the point at which the bad android shows up and saves them all from the two aliens so that he can do something, from that point on, the whole movie has no real coherent form of progression. It's just like,
oh god,
all right, we need a scene where everyone's sitting around and then someone stands up and says, well, I'm off to die. Okay, and after that...
Go die now. Wow, this was a really bad conversation.
And after that, we need one of the humans. We need one of the humans to discover the dark secret that the android apparently didn't tell the other android. So he needs to discover this and pull a gun on him, and then we'll just have the bad guy android say, "Oh, well, I'll show you everything." And so the human completely disarms and lowers his gun and just has no defenses and no worries whatsoever after discovering this deep, dark secret.
Right.
And then proceeds to follow the android. After the android shows him that he's been experimenting on people, he then proceeds to follow, at the android's behest, down a dark, narrow staircase.
Is he wearing the appropriate personal protective equipment?
I think he has a gun still. I don't know.
I mean, no. I mean, like gloves and a face mask.
No. It's just like, hey, now let me show you something.
No. You don't. That's like, if you go up to a guy and you're like, "You're a mad scientist, aren't you?" He's like, "Yeah, I've been experimenting on people. Come with me." you put on a hazmat suit.
He didn't even lift his gun up again.
Oh. Did he just not have time, or was it dumber than that?
You want to know just how dumb it got?
Sure.
At what stage in your life do you... That's not the right way to word this. Where do you have to be in your head after all of that to listen to someone when they say, "Hey, stick your face in this"?
What? What?
These aren't things that happen in movies.
So what you're saying is that this movie is the smash comedy hit of the year.
I mean, if you wear those glasses into the movie, then it can be, yes. I mean, it's unbelievable. There's not a scene in the movie that is not like this.
I have to see this. I just have to see how much of a train wreck it is.
I mean, there's a scene at the beginning where the guy that gets infected first, he's like, "Hey, I have to go take a leak," and the woman that he's collecting samples with is like, "Okay, well, hurry back." And then he wanders off, sits down on a stump, and starts smoking a cigarette. And it's like, remembering correctly, that wasn't that guy's wife. So why did he lie to her about the fact that he wanted to go smoke?
I don't know.
I mean, he didn't even take a leak. He didn't do that. So it was clearly him blatantly lying about what he was doing, but to no end.
He was clearly under the control of an alien parasite.
No, because they show him getting infected with the parasite while he's smoking.
What?
Yeah, he steps on some pod that unleashes some pollen into the air that crawls into his ear. They made a really big to-do about showing the inside of this guy's ear.
Because that's what audiences want to see.
There were points at that movie where I wanted to just belly up, start laughing, and and it was just like, no, other people are probably pretending to enjoy this.
I think I have to see this. I think I just have to go tomorrow and see this. It sounds so ridiculous.
It is to Prometheus what Alien Resurrection is to Alien.
Good God.
I mean, I didn't want to drop that bombshell on you, but I just want you to be aware.
I've never even seen Alien Resurrection. I've only heard stories.
Okay, well, let me tell you real quick about... Have you ever seen the third Alien movie?
Yeah, a couple times. A few times.
I watched that movie, and my jaw was agape for the majority of the events that took place in that movie. It was just... I was horrified that the Alien franchise that I had grown to love had such a black sheep in its midst. And I was just sitting there watching. I was like, wow, this is so unbelievably bad. This is like someone's cyberpunk fan fiction of Alien. And then about half a year later, I said, oh, I've never seen the fourth one. I'm going to watch that. I mean, it couldn't possibly be worse than the third one. Oh, God, was I wrong. I mean, I didn't think I could be that wrong.
You should have second-guessed yourself. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, in this instance, I think that I should have reserved... I should have saved it for that moment. If I was going to second-guess myself one time in life, that should have been it.
Yikes. Well, now I really have to see it. It just sounds. I mean, like for you to say that it is to Alien, it is to Prometheus what Alien Resurrection was to Alien is like. You remember how you used to describe how bad The Keep was, and you used to say like you used to go get up on your tiptoes and put your hand all the way up and say, "Okay, this is the best movie you've ever seen." And then you bring your hand down an inch, and you say, "This is Spy Kids 3D." And then you go down to your feet, and you say, "Down here is the keep."
Yeah.
Like this, like Alien Resurrection, based on what I've heard, is like 0.01 times as good as Alien, or less. And then Prometheus wasn't even that great. So, like, for this to be 0.01 times as good as Prometheus is like, oh my god.
Let me, I don't want to confuse the scale. Alien Resurrection is worse than Alien Covenant.
Uh-huh.
But Alien Resurrection, to some degree, was a movie.
Uh-huh.
It a really bad movie, but Alien Covenant was just like... It was like Ridley Scott and his writers getting baked and like... Not even... No, they weren't even... Not even baked. Like they'd had too much wine, and then someone threw them a film reel and a pair of scissors.
They're just like, go to town! And then, like, Ridley Scott has, like really important connecting scenes, but they're, like...
Connecting the wrong scenes?
No. Like, he has, like, the most important scene in the movie. He has the film strip of the most important, pivotal scene in the movie that makes the whole thing work. And he, like, does Cat's Cradle with it, and then, like, someone snips it with scissors. I guess we won't be watching that scene.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. I might have to go see this tomorrow. This
and I think
so bad.
I think one of the aliens was bulletproof, too. I didn't understand where that was coming from.
They're always, like... I mean, like, you remember when we were playing Alien Isolation?
Mm-hmm.
No, the alien in that game is bulletproof, right? Like, as far as we could tell.
Right, but... that isn't really how the Alien movies have been. I mean, the whole point was you can't really injure them because then they bleed acid.
Yeah.
But in this movie, it's like they had an alien on top of a guy, and I swear 6 people were opening fire on this thing. I swear it showed them hitting it, and then it just rolled over and ran away.
Oh.
And then came back to kill later on.
Of course.
And it's weird because, like, the biggest homage to any of the other movies that this movie gave was to the worst part of Alien Resurrection.
What? Really?
So if I wanted to sum up Alien Resurrection for you really quickly.
Okay.
Sigourney Weaver is a clone of her previous characters in the first 3 movies.
Yeah.
And she has acid blood and alien powers, I guess we'll call them.
What does alien powers mean?
She's really good at basketball.
Okay.
And,
racist.
I don't care. After what I sat through. Well, anyway, so what Alien Resurrection is, at its heart, is Sigourney Weaver embracing a genetically enhanced version of the alien, and the alien looking at her and saying, "Mommy," and then she has to kill it, but then cries about having to kill it.
Okay.
That's Alien Resurrection.
Okay.
The closest they came to giving homage to any of the other movies, other than having an alien in the movie, was the scene where the bad android is standing in front of one of the proto-aliens, and he's trying to communicate with it, and it's not attacking him because he's not human, so it's just confused by him. And then someone from behind him shoots it, and it survives and runs off.
Okay.
No, wait, no. Did it? No, it did. I don't think that one survived. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter whether the thing lived or died, because they were pointless to have in the movie in the first place. Yeah, the aliens were pointless. but it was trying to communicate with him as its creator, and he got angry when they shot it and was like, he was like, I was getting it to trust me, and I'm just like, wow, you've been on the planet creating these things. You told them that it was violent by nature. What a mess.
Sounds like it.
I think there's like a half hour of the movie I can't even remember, just because nothing was really going on. But like, all I remember from one part of the movie was the part where this woman gets up and is like, hey, I'm going to go die.
What?
It's basically what happened. It was like, are we safe here? Yes. Okay, good. I'm going to go somewhere where I'm not safe because I need to bathe or something. I'll be back.
I'll be back.
Going to go wash
Catch
off some of this
later.
Infectious alien blood in the in the pooling water that I'm assuming we're all going to be drinking out of at some point.
Hold on, let me dig a latrine.
So that's Alien Covenant.
I
don't even want to get into how it ended because I don't know if it did.
Don't. If I'm going to go see it tomorrow, I need to have a little something to look downward to.
I mean, it's a huge. It might be the most disappointing thing in the movie because there's like 20 minutes of ending, and the entire 20 minutes you're like, I know exactly what's going to happen. It's so obvious what's about to happen. I mean, you don't have two androids fight, and one of them tell the other, there have been a few upgrades since your model, and then proceed to beat the living snot out of him. And then cut away at the very last minute in the fight. And then have everyone find the android. I'm going to go ahead and just let you know that the androids look alike because they're the same model. Well, they're the same make. One's an upgraded version, but
yeah.
Yeah. So they cut away from this big android fight where the bad guy is just he's just taking a beating. It's just it's not even a contest. It's like the newer model's winning this one, but they don't let you see the end of the fight. And the moment that happens, you're like, no, they're not going to do that. They're not going to. Hey, they're all back on the ship with the android.
Yay! It's the wrong android, isn't it?
It's just so badly done. I can't even describe it. The good android loses his arm near the beginning of the movie. And the whole time, the minute the minute they come across the other android, you're just like, oh, they're going to do a switcheroo. That's why he lost his arm. They're not. It wasn't even like
so obvious.
There was no good attempt to try to draw you away from the fact that he's clearly missing an arm. It's like
yeah.
They even pointed out at one part of the movie. It's like, well, if you didn't really have any emotions, why did you lose your arm to save her? Which was a stupid line anyway, because it's like he's an android. He's probably supposed to protect the crew.
Rule number 2.
Yes.
Jackass.
I'm gonna go ahead and say I don't think that the aliens follow the alien androids follow the Asimov rule, but
no, but the whole. I mean, when the point of Bishop in Aliens is that they do now. Like he basically quotes it verbatim.
That's true.
I mean, yes. Clearly, the android in the first Alien was given conflicting orders, and so therefore had a dilemma that it couldn't solve. But like, I mean, it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear from the way that Bishop talks in Aliens that the point from the beginning was to instill those laws or similar versions of them into androids.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know what laws they instilled in the writers of this movie, but they were not to protect humanity. I know that.
Well, they did release the movie.
Yeah. Not accidentally either. Totally on purpose.
No, it was on purpose. We should cut that part, like, when we put this up. We should cut that part and just, like, a few seconds of it, and then, like, we'll go back to us talking about it, but we'll never actually explicitly have it shown that we said that to each other.
Of course. It's the new method. But I mean,
Same as the old method.
it was the only thing that had any progression in the movie, and it was a bad thing to have progression. It's like, loses arm, meets android that looks just like him, fights android that looks just like him, fight ends abruptly without you seeing ending.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like, oh.
I think I know where this is going. It was more obvious than... The outcome was more immediately apparent than knowing that the death of the two people having sex in a Friday the 13th movie was coming.
Uh-huh. I'm going to have to go see this. It's just... It's going to gnaw at me if I don't. I have to.
Well, I'll tell you, you will not be appointed.
I suppose not. I don't know, if it's not as bad as you make me think it is, I might be appointed.
Is my wife there? Can I speak to her? Let's go to a private channel. Let's spend 2 minutes getting you to a private channel just so we can tell you what the audience already knows. And then after you hear it, why don't you lean against the wall for a good 30 seconds, wiping your face and trying not to cry.
That sounds like really good script writing. Yeah, totally.
Your wife's dead, Tennessee. Oh, how's your wife? Yeah, she's dead too.
Country road!
Well, I need to stop watching movies.